is Kevin Smith is leaving Ole Miss to become the running backs coach at the University of Miami. Same position he's got at Ole Miss. Played at, he's a Florida guy. And, if you want to try to explain it away that way, I suppose you can. He wanted to go back to the state of Florida. But that's really the only way that you can explain this one away. The other departures, Borky, make a lot of sense, right?
They do. You can rationally and objectively explain away the two coordinators leaving and the strength and conditioning coach.
Jeff Lebby gets the opportunity to go run his own offense for a defensive-minded head coach in Brent Venables at Oklahoma, his alma mater. Enough said.
That is not a lateral move, as some people like to call it. That is an objectively better opportunity for him, and he took it.
Well, and it's not just like immediate opportunity; it's a career path opportunity as well.
Yes.
It's the next step on climbing the career ladder to being a head coach at a big job.
If you're Jeff Lebby, you got to prove that you can do offense without Lane Kiffin.
Yeah,
you got to.
DJ Durkin leaves Ole Miss. And I have it on good authority that this wasn't like an easy slam dunk decision for Durkin. And I really don't think it was a money thing when it was all said and done. I was told that Ole Miss had gotten to just shy of $2 million in terms of an offer to him. Texas A&M is paying him a couple $100,000 more than that. But, and again, this is what I'm told, Ole Miss was never asked, but would you match the money? So it wasn't so much about the money, but DJ Durkin is going to go coach the defense that has the highest-ranked defensive recruiting class in the history of recruiting.
And look at what he's got returning on that side of the ball. The thing that I keep coming back to, again, people keep using the term lateral move. Number one, as you mentioned, Texas A&M's ability to get players is greater than that of Ole Miss. That is objectively true. They just signed the number one recruiting class in the history of at least one recruiting service. But two, with his unique situation, and if you want to call it that or call it something else, with what happened at Maryland, regardless if you think it's fair or not that it's going to follow him around for as long as it does, but it still follows him around. And if you want to be a head coach again, which I imagine he does because the life is pretty great, money and otherwise, leading a program, being the boss is better than having somebody be your boss. But he's got to show that his coaching prowess outweighs scandal. And how can you prove that? By coaching top 10 defenses. Where would that be easier for him to do? Texas A&M. You can call it a lateral move. I'm sorry, it's not a lateral move. But I think that's something that is getting lost on some people is if he's going to be a head coach again, you've got to have the best, considering what is in his past. Whether it's fair or not, it's there. So your coaching prowess has to outweigh your scandal. And the best way to do that is have the best defense in America. So you go to Texas A&M because you're more likely to do that there.
Wilson Love leaves as a strength and conditioning coordinator to go be the strength and conditioning coordinator at Oregon. Kevin Smith was a little harder. Now, look, here's what you don't know, right? You don't know what all goes into somebody's individual decision. If Michael Borky was offered the exact same job that he has here at SuperTalk, Mississippi, in Greenville, South Carolina, making the same money, just a little bit more money, or just a little bit less money, but with basically the same responsibilities, doing the exact same thing, you might look at Borky and go, well, that's a lateral move. And you might be right. Or Borky might say, well, yeah, but it's a bigger market, like it's a single market, even though it's not a statewide thing. And so maybe it's not a but you could debate, is it a lateral move or not? But here's what you wouldn't know. You wouldn't necessarily know what else went into Michael Borky's decision. You wouldn't know if the fact that he was from South Carolina and has family that is still there weighed into the decision. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You wouldn't know if he thinks it's a better opportunity for the future of his career, for his path going forward. Maybe it's better, maybe it's not. But we aren't privy to like all we look at. I'm using we in like a great big collective sense. And please remember that I said it's kind of hard to explain the Kevin Smith departure.
Yeah. You could explain the other three away. This one, yeah, he's from Florida.
Well, but this is what I was going to say, though, Borky, is we only look at it as one job's in the SEC, one job's in the ACC. SEC's better. One job pays more than the other. That makes one job better. And, we don't factor in the other stuff. So, that's part one of this. Here's part two of this. Lane Kiffin has got to create an environment where people want to work with him and people are looking for a reason to stay instead of looking for a reason to go. I don't know how to say that any more clearly. Now, are there still times where you're like, I got to take this opportunity? Jeff Lebby, for example. Maybe DJ Durkin, for example. Maybe even Wilson Love. But whatever it is that Lane Kiffin is doing as the head coach, as the leader of that organization, it's pretty clear that he's not creating an environment, a work environment, a staff environment where instead of immediately being willing to listen or being willing to make that career transition, guys are like, I'm really not looking for a reason to go. I'm looking for a reason to stay. And it doesn't appear that they've got that right now. I don't know if that's fair or unfair.
I think it's really fair because the person at the top is doing that very thing.
Here's what I'm telling you. Ole Miss has the ability financially, maybe not at every single assistant coach position, but Ole Miss has the ability to compete financially with any school in the SEC on a single guy or a couple of guys. Money is not the reason that ultimately DJ Durkin left. Money is not the reason that Jeff Lebby left. Maybe money's the reason Wilson Love left. I don't know. Money's not going to be the reason that Kevin Smith leaves to go be the running backs coach at Miami. And so, if money's not the reason, you got to figure out what the reason is. It's not like, wow, that Miami situation for Kevin Smith is so much better than the situation that you see the running back room that Kevin Smith's going to have at Ole Miss next year? Pretty darn good. Pretty darn good.
High level.
I've said this, and I'm going to continue to say, until proven otherwise, I'm going to give Lane Kiffin the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be good offensively, because they've been good offensively everywhere he's been, regardless of whatever the personnel is. He's got to figure out a way, though, to create some stability on his staff and have guys that want to stay instead of want to leave. Get a message from the 601. Maybe Lane just didn't care if they left. Maybe the reasons were wrapped up in his hard to work for and he's not going to change, so it's a deal with or leave mentality. That's not the case, though. I think the writing was on the wall with Jeff Lebby. I mean, we talked about that back in August, right?
July, yeah.
This was the year that Jeff Lebby was either going to become the head coach at Ole Miss or potentially become the head coach at Ole Miss after the season if Lane Kiffin were to leave, and if Lane Kiffin didn't leave, then Jeff Lebby was probably going to either be a head coach somewhere else or an offensive coordinator somewhere else. Just kind of like the career path. He tried like heck to keep DJ Durkin. Just didn't work. He tried like heck to keep Wilson Love. Wilson Love thought that was an opportunity that he had to take to go to Oregon. And he tried like heck to keep Kevin Smith. So, I mean, look, staff turnover's fine. It happens. It happens.
Everything can be true at once. All of these things can absolutely be true at the same time. After you have a special season, and 10 wins in the regular season at a place like Ole Miss is a special season, never been done before. You're going to have others that will try to take your staff from you. It happens. It happened at Orgeron. It happens to Nick Saban on an annual basis. It's happening to Dabo Swinney. It's going to happen. Oklahoma State had a historically great defense for them, and guess what happened to their defensive coordinator? He's at Ohio State now. I mean, that's what happens sometimes. It can also be true that Lane Kiffin is very good at replacing his staff. He did it last year. He had 4 staff members leave or get fired last year and replaced them all very well. It can also be true that the concern from fans is justified because you did just go to a Sugar Bowl and you did just have a quarterback that's about to go in the first round anyway. A guy that was the turnaround that Matt Corral has made from 2019 to now is remarkable. A lot of that has to do with Lane Kiffin. Most of that, you could argue. And it can also be true, and I think this is really happening and not talked about enough, the constant desire, the looking at other jobs, whatever the case may be, is adversely affecting his program. I think that's very fair to say right now. It's hurting him with fans. I think it's hurting with his staff. And I think it hurt a little bit in recruiting, although the portal is going very well right now. When people say the portal's not going well for Ole Miss, you're being disingenuous. So far, they've added a former 5-star running back, a plug-and-play guy, 2 probably immediate starters at wide receiver, and 2 defensive backs, both of which are probably going to start. That's so far. They're going to continue to get more. They're potentially going to get visits from 2 former Southern Cal players. One is a starter at tight end, and one's probably going to be your quarterback next year. So the portal thing's going well. But you cannot tell me the constant desire to take other jobs, whether it's just for clout or it's serious, is not adversely affecting the program. You cannot convince me otherwise. Look, LSU just hired Notre Dame's head coach. That's who LSU just hired. They could have gotten anybody. That's a desirable job. If LSU is an upgrade from Notre Dame, it sure as heck is an upgrade from Ole Miss. I'm not blaming Kiffin for being interested in that job, but this should have been a humbling moment for him. Because he's a hell of a coach. Great coach. Objectively great coach. We've seen it. When it comes to coaching football, the dude is as good as a lot of people. Or as not many people, I should say. He's great at it. But there's a reason LSU and Florida and Oklahoma, none of these jobs had any interest in him, despite him having interest in them. I think he needs Ole Miss right now. And the attitude, the approach, whatever you want to call it, the being absent, the constantly having your name in other jobs and being interested in those jobs is hurting him. To some level, whatever level you want to call it, it's harming him. I know it's just a job for football coaches. I'm not naive. It's just a job for 99% of these guys. But it wouldn't hurt him to act like he cared about the place that gave him his second shot. And that's Keith Carter and Ole Miss. Because the way he acts behind the scenes with wanting all these other jobs and not getting any of them, and even the optics of really wanted to keep DJ Durkin. Well, the negotiations were happening when he was out of the country. How bad do you want a guy? You really want him to stay?
Yeah, look, I mean, yeah. I asked that exact question and was told that location really didn't have anything to do with how that went.
But if you really wanted him to stay, you going to do the pitch over a phone call when you're out of the country? You're going to look at him in the eye.
Yeah, I don't think that's exactly how these things work, though. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I'm sorry, what?
Maybe that's how it should.
Well, maybe. But I mean, you think or believe whatever you want. I'm just told that didn't really have it. Like, a lot of those conversations are agent-based. I agree with you, Borky. I mean, if I'm trying to convince you, I'm probably going to sit down and go, hold on, man. You can't leave me. But maybe you can do that over the phone. I don't know. I tend to agree with you that it makes more sense. But I asked specifically that question and was told that, yeah, that didn't factor into this. So, whatever.
Yeah. I know if I'm trying to convince somebody to continue to work for me, I'm not calling them if I can help it. Either way, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because he's got his replacement and people think really highly of Chris Partridge, and maybe it all works out. But in optics don't matter. What matters is wins. If you win, it doesn't matter. What happens right now doesn't matter if they have a successful season in 2022. But I hear from enough Ole Miss fans that say they're frustrated with the optics, whatever that's worth, of staff members leaving, missing on quarterbacks, or Caleb Williams is doing his recruiting thing, and the coach is out of the country. Whether or not that's fair, I don't think it's really fair. People deserve breaks. I took a break at the end of the year. I went home for 5 days. So why should I criticize somebody for doing the exact same thing I did? But I do understand why fans are frustrated with that. Because this is the SEC West, by the way. And maybe the work-life balance for other coaches is in an unhealthy way, but you have to get past Alabama if you're going to win anything of value. You have to get past LSU if you're going to win anything of value. You have to get past Georgia. Arkansas. Is Sam Pittman in the Bahamas right now? Maybe. But he's not losing staff members left and right while he's there. It's a grinders league. And when you're at a place like Ole Miss, you are behind the eight ball because of inherent resources that you have a hard time overcoming. You have to be more efficient than everybody else in the league. You can afford less at Ole Miss than you can at a place like Alabama. But the optics, for whatever they're worth, say that the guy at Ole Miss cares less than the guy at Alabama, than the guy at Texas A&M, who was on ESPN all night last night. That means something to some people. Is that fair? I don't know. But I know that is bothering people because it's a grinders league, and the perception is that Ole Miss does not have a grinder. Is that fair? I don't know. But that is what Ole Miss fans that talk to me say.
And I don't know if it matters or not.
Winning is all that matters. If you win, this does not matter at all.
I had somebody describe to me one time kind of the mindset of Lane Kiffin as somebody that easily gets bored. And so to fight the boredom, it's almost like when he wakes up in the morning, he creates chaos around himself and then entertains himself by being able to navigate his way through the chaos. Now, I don't know if that is an accurate characterization. It came from somebody who knew him fairly well. I don't know. But there's quietly some chaos. And yet, in year 2, Lane Kiffin took Ole Miss to the Sugar Bowl and won 10